Coming up, a tale of two cars, the Hemi Cuda and the Hemi Challenger, on the American muscle car. There are some muscle cars that qualify as special. They made a statement either with their styling, their performance, or their unique ability to stop traffic and turn heads. These cars stand out among the other legends of the muscle era as symbols of what a car could be when taken to the extreme. In this case, even the name of the car was enough to stop you in your tracks. In the drive-in, at the drag strip, wherever you were, heads turned when you heard the word Hemi. The Hemi Cuda and its younger brother from Dodge, the Hemi Challenger, represented the absolute pinnacle of the power-to-weight pyramid. The Cuda started life as a Valiant. Between 1960 and 1970, it underwent a complete transformation, growing from a six-cylinder grocery getter to a sporty little compact car, to a sporty little pony car, to a fire-breathing awesome mobile. In 1970, as the Cuda was graduating awesome cum laude from the Chrysler School of Big Engines and Little Cars, the Dodge Challenger was born. To the casual observer, the cars appeared identical. Nothing, however, was further from the truth. Like two fraternal twins separated at birth, the Cuda and Challenger had different upbringings, differed physically in many areas, and were aimed at different audiences. The Cuda, by virtue of its Valiant heritage, was brought into the market with a low buck image, which stayed with the car even after engine upgrades and styling changes throughout its lifetime. The Challenger entered the market as an upscale rich boy's toy. Dodge and Plymouth had some very different ideas about these cars. The Cuda and Challenger did share one very important component: Chrysler's 426 Hemi engine. With this power plant under the hood, their straight-line performance covered just about anything any other muscle-bound pony car wanted to throw down. And that is what makes legends. To tell the story of these cars, we need to tell three stories: how the Valiant turned into a supercar, why Dodge waited until 1970 to jump into the pony car market, and how an engine originally built in 1951 as a Luxo barge power plant became the mightiest name in horsepower. Stay with us, and when we come back, we'll tell you all about it on the American Muscle Car. Everybody knows what happened to the American car landscape in 1964. The Mustang. It was the largest, most successful single product introduction in history. Over 440,000 Mustangs were sold in just 6 months, creating a market segment which still lives on today. You might think a market trend of this magnitude might have been seen by everyone, but it wasn't. In fact, besides Ford, no one saw it coming, except Plymouth.
64, the Barracuda was the other pony car. It did okay, selling 23,000 units, but it was nothing compared to the Mustang sales of almost 500,000. But there was very little else in Detroit that year that did get any attention.
Like the Mustang, the 64 Barracuda had a ready-made platform. As the Mustang used the Falcon underpinnings, the Barracuda would be built up from the Plymouth Valiant. First-generation Barracudas were in effect Valiants with a sporty body, a few interior upgrades, and the largest single piece of auto glass ever made for a rear window. The early Barracudas were great race cars in the hands of drivers like Bob Riggle and Ronnie Sox. The second generation Barracudas from 67 to 69 were completely new from the ground up and no longer borrowed anything from the Valiant. By now, Chrysler had tired of its little pony car being the slowest one of the bunch. The 273 was replaced with the 340 small block V8 and the 383 big block. But this was the muscle car era, and somewhere within Plymouth, somebody said it isn't enough. So by April 1969, a few Barracudas began terrorizing the streets with a 440 cubic inch wedge engine.
The 440 really marked the Barracuda's transformation from a European influenced car to a Detroit muscle car. But the engine was such a tight fit in the bay, you could not get air conditioning, power steering, or power brakes. Can you imagine trying to parallel park one of these things with that big 440 sitting over those wheels?
The third stage of the Cuda, which was now its given name, came in 1970. The 70 was clearly the best one yet. Now all that remained was the addition of the final ingredient which would turn this great car into the ultimate weapon in the street wars, the 426 Street Hemi. Racers had been putting Hemi engines in the Barracuda ever since they could get the two of them in the same garage. The factory had even made a few special ones for a few special people.
In 1968, Chrysler put together a package where they installed the Hemi engine in the Barracuda. Chrysler put together a package. These cars were not even built on the assembly line. Hurst, the famous shifter people, did the assembly of these cars for Chrysler. They were purebred race cars. You didn't even get a title when you bought one. You got an MSRP, which is a manufacturer suggested retail price certificate. That's all. The cars were not legal to be licensed for the street. They had plastic side windows, they had fiberglass fenders and hood, they came with no exhaust system. The cars were not street legal as built, they were a purpose-built race car. Chrysler was pretty particular who they put these cars into the hands of. Dick Landy, Sox and Martin, these were the type of people that got these cars, the people that Chrysler knew would campaign them successfully and carry the Pentastar banner into the winner's circle.
But now, anyone with the necessary funds and the cheek to inquire about insurance coverage could have one. The word spread like wildfire among all the other stock class racers. Get a Hemi or pack up and go home.
If you didn't pay very close attention to the state of tune, the 426 Hemi was often a little bit slower than a 440. But its potential was just about unlimited. With the right camshaft, the right carburation, the right rear gearing, you could run a 10-second quarter mile with one of these 426 Hemis. But by the time you tuned it to that level, it was just about impossible to live with on the street.
The 426 Street Hemi added $871 to the price of a 70 Cuda. By contrast, the 440 six-pack engine carried a price tag of just $250. So it might have seemed strange that anyone would have spent over $600 more for an engine option that was, by all reports, better suited to the high banks of the Daytona Speedway than the stoplights of Main Street. But the Hemi had a mystique all its own. The fewer than 1,000 people who were lucky enough to buy a Hemi Cuda in 1970 didn't mind that it didn't idle well, or that its low-end response wasn't as snappy as a Z28. When they opened the hood and there were those two big black valve covers, those two 4-barrels, nobody wondered any longer. They just knew.
My car is a 1970 Hemi Barracuda. Roughly, they made 650 of these. This particular one has an automatic transmission, and I drive it on the street, I muscle car race it, and we have a lot of fun with it.
When the American muscle car returns, Dodge enters the fray. If the muscle car era was a Broadway play, then the Hemi Challenger was certainly a headliner, a major box office star.